Good evening. This is a recording of the Beacon Hill Council Community Meeting, December 6th, 2022. My name is Maria Batiola, Chair. So we're proceeding with our business. I'd like to give you some updates on quite a number of items that have come through. The city budget, I want to give a report to that. There are three major areas that the budget is going to be benefiting us from the Green New Deal Jumpstart tax dollars. There's about 20 million, and there's a Green New Deal Oversight Board that is composed of community, of greenhouse gas reduction scientists and others who advise the mayor on, who make recommendations on to the mayor as well as to the council on what to fund. Green New Deal has three basic principles that it operates on, which is the reduction of greenhouse gas so that we can resolve the climate issue aggressively by 2030, according to legislation. Second is community resiliency, particularly for frontline communities. And third is economic inclusion, meaning the jobs that come out of it also address economic, racial, and disadvantaged groups. So the first thing, as you all know, we have been working a lot on the conversion of the oil heat to clean energy because we have a lot of our neighbors. So in 2022, $1 million is allocated to assist low-income neighbors to get off oil heat. And concurrently, El Centro de la Raza is applying for a grant to be able to identify and develop a list of low-income people so that there's a ready list when the opportunity comes down. The second is community resiliency hubs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that concept, but as you know, we've had the smoke coming from the fires. There are heat islands that are happening. It's hot and potentially some flooding with rains, with the loss of trees and so forth. So these hubs generally are running on clean energy, and they are gathering places where people can go. Let's say they lose electricity or energy, they can plug in their phones or whatnot, as well as stay in place while they weather either the cold snap or the heat wave or the fire smoke. So in terms of the community resiliency hubs, in the money is allocated to have a citywide study of where those community hubs should be. There's also 1.5 million, which is going to be allocated to parks and libraries to convert the buildings to clean energy in preparation for those buildings to be a community resiliency hub. And the Green New Deal Oversight Board advocated that impacted racial, social, and environmental injustice areas such as Southeast Seattle receive priority. So it's possible that Jefferson Community and Beacon Hill Library will get on the list. Concurrent with that, we at the Beacon Hill Council have applied for a grant to identify community resiliency hubs in Beacon Hill. The reason we're doing this is because the ideal situation is that you have one community hub, resiliency hub, for each 1,000 people. We have about 40,000. We have 40% immigrants and refugees who probably have some other language as their primary language, and also 70% people of color. So we need to be on the lookout for resiliency hubs that are going to be cross-culturally appropriate with language capacity. And the third area is that a tree canopy study is funded. This is very important for us because we're a green desert, and we're also trying to retain our trees as well as grow trees. So I'm just going to pause and see if you guys might have any questions on that. I'm also going to take a peek at the chat.
Maria?
Yes, please.
As part of the Green New Deal Jump Street appropriation, the council also repealed the tax they adopted 3 years ago on heating oil. And I wanted to thank you publicly for all the good work you did to keep that issue alive for the last 3 years, especially your work on the Green New Deal Task Force to try to get more progressive funding source for the oil to heat conversion. And so January 1st, those of us on oil heat would have been facing a 24-cent a gallon additional tax. And that got repealed last week. And the mayor signed it on Friday. And Maria did a lot of work to make that happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, it's the journey really is trying to get our voices up. So part of that was I joined the Green New Deal Oversight Board, and I'll be finishing my term as this my second year as co-chair this coming May. So also we have an invaluable Beacon Hill Council EJ task force. Linda Wong, who's our co-chair, has been testifying. And so you guys, the more you raise the voices of Beacon Hill and what we need, the better it's going to be. So let me move to another area, which is the aircraft air and noise pollution campaign. The biggest news we have is that when I say we are a collaboration of Beacon Hill Council, El Centro de la Raza, King County International Airport Community Coalition, that's in the Duwamish area, 350 Seattle Aviation, and Quiet Skies Puget Sound, which represents the community around the airport. There's around 6 cities. So we went in together and reached out to Partners in Change, which belongs to which is part of Education and Equity, because they have done incredible organizing outreach regarding COVID to not only inform and educate people what COVID is, but also how to get resources. So we reached out to them and said, let's partner because we don't have any people of color organizing capacity in the cities around the airport. And they agreed. So we put together a new coalition called STAC, Seattle Airport, SeaTac, Seattle Tacoma Airport Community Coalition for Justice. And we applied to Best Start for Kids, communities of opportunity under the category of place-based organizing, because the air and noise pollution from the aircraft, and for those of us who are under the flight paths, is harmful to our health, our environment, and to climate. And we were awarded $885,000 over 3 years. So that's approximately $250,000 to $260,000 a year. So we're going to start the project next year. We're going to do a retreat, compile all of our different initiatives so that we can be more strategic. And one of the important things is that SeaTac, Nate Caminos informed me that the SAMP, SeaTac, my brain went out. The SAMP is the proposed increase in flights. They're going to defer it until 2024. So this gives us good time to organize, because we're still going to push the campaign on Fix the Harm. And thanks to Christina Chu and also Maritza Loriano, we now have about 1,400 signatures on there, mostly Beacon Hill. So we're doing really, really good. The pressure is going to be on. Oh, thank you, Sally. Sally, thank you for reminding me. It's Sustainable Airport Master Plan, and it proposes an increase in capacity for SeaTac to service more air flights. So the other piece that we all need to understand is what's happening on the Coordinating Commission for Airports. They were tasked to identify another location where a new airport could be sited. And they were influenced to do what is called a greenfield, meaning put an airport in a place when there's not a big population. So originally they identified 9. Southeast King County was in place, and our executive pushed that out. King County Executive Dow pushed that out. And so they were left with 3, 2 in Pierce County and 1 in Thurston County. And all of those counties said they don't want the airport. So even though an greenfield might solve the health issue, it still generates greenhouse gases that really exacerbates our climate condition. So that's going on. And what it could do is it could put a lot of pressure on SeaTac to carry that load if a new airport isn't done. Regardless, it takes 20 years to develop a new airport. And in the meantime, there's also going to be that pressure. So we have to really be organized in educating folks on why we are saying, we need to get the harms fixed. Okay, so there's a couple of comments. Amelia, you have your comment, and then I saw something flash in the chat box also. Go ahead, Amelia.
Yeah, my question relates to, one, has there been conversation from the campaign to think about requesting possibly the port or the city to, well, I wouldn't say the port, maybe just the city, to maybe provide a letter to the actual decision committee that, another airport in the city of Seattle or near the city of Seattle would not be recommended, or to the extent where it could just at least raise the alarm where we don't want more of the flight path within the city of Seattle. And then also, is there any consideration about the King County airport as well too, when you're thinking about the flight path? Because I live near the King County airport and I get a lot of the freight planes, which are really, really loud at night up to like 1 or 2 in the morning. And then again, starting up at 4 or 5 in the morning. So, and those things also cause a lot of harm as well too. And it's a combination of that airport plus SeaTac, which we all get together.
Amelia, good comments. On the first one, we're already off the list. Seattle was never on the list. Okay. On the second comment, we have a sister organization called King County International Airport Community Coalition, and they're focused directly on KCIA Airport. There's also another issue about the use of lead fuels in there. So if you can put your email in the chat box, I can connect you with Velma Valorio, who's the chair, and then you can, participate in that organizing. So thank you. Let's see, Alex, do we know what the grant money will be used for? Yes, the grant money will be used to hire. We don't know what it's going to look like here. It's not going to be a specific person. The way Partners in Change operates is they're connected. They're in a coalition and they're connected to a lot of organizations. And we're looking at small grants of, I think, 2,000 to 3,000, so that they could do education and reach out to their respective communities. But the grant money, majority of it is going to be focused on building organizing capacity in the 6 cities around the airport, so that they can organize people of color specifically. Quiet Skies Puget Sound, which is in that area, is a traditional mainstream climate and environmental organization, and it doesn't have the capacity to do the BIPOC organizing. Alex, does that help? Okay. All right, and with that, I am going to encourage you to join in on the Zoom. This Saturday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to conduct our 6th annual Air and Noise Pollution Community Meeting that's co-sponsored by Beacon Hill and El Centro de la Raza. And so it's on Eventbrite. You can easily access it. So I'd love to see you there. And then the last item is that we have had a lot of tree canopy issues in Beacon Hill. Noji Gardens, there is, because of the design and proposed egress, they're looking at cutting 100 trees down. In the north end of Beacon Hill, on 17th and Walker, there were 2 plots of land that were scheduled for development, and the North 17th and Walker Community Connections neighbors, they organized and they advocated for retention of trees and for a play space for children around the neighborhood. And Parks is trying to buy that piece of property. So that's good. We are on track. We already have raised 3 million to buy another piece of property that Parks is our main partner. So they're holding the money and they're making the offer on it. So we're waiting. It's looking like instead of the 19 acres, it'll be 13 acres. So we're still waiting on that. But tree issues are popping up in different places. And because of climate and because of air and noise pollution filtration, we need them. So as a result, I have solicited interest from the organizers of those different issues if we can come together and set up the EJ task force on tree canopy. Lisa Poteska and I have been like the lone flame keepers of that. And so now we're going to have more folks. And we have to tease a lot of stuff out because we have a sister task force inside Beacon Hill, which is our airport aviation air and noise pollution task force. So that's my good news. I'm running 3 minutes behind. And I'd like to turn it over to Megan Slade, who's going to, we're going to revisit elections and see if you might have any additional report or feedback. Megan?
Yeah, thanks so much, Maria. So last month, we had the great privilege to re-elect Deirdre to the board and the great joy to add Kalia Carter and Jerry Chambers to the board as well. So 2 new folks. Thanks. And then tonight we were supposed to also do Mark Solomon was going to run for another term, and I don't think he's here though. Do I have that right? I don't see him.
Oh, he's not. As a matter of fact, I
Yeah.
saw an email. He gave us proxy.
Oh,
Okay.
darn. Okay, so we might have to push it. And so I guess maybe for this, we could see if there's anyone else. I think we have a few more seats that are available. Of anyone else that might be interested in joining the board, it's a really great opportunity. And you get to spend lots of time with Maria, which is a great thing too. But also we'll revisit this hopefully next month with Mark. And if anyone wants to think about it and ask any questions, we still have more spaces.
Okay. And with that, we'll go ahead and jump up over to an update on the North Beacon Hill Bike Trail. So we have Myra, Amy, and Kalia to report on that. Do you guys need to be co-hosted? Do you have any visuals you're going to do?
I have one visual, yes.
Okay, so let's get you co-hosted. Deirdre? Oh, great. Thank you so much. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I won't show that right away, but just wanted to kind of talk regarding a meeting that we had last week. So kind of to lay the context for anybody who doesn't know, the Seattle Department of Transportation is planning on putting in a protected bike lanes going from the Jose Rizal Bridge going south on Beacon Hill. There were 3 different routes that were presented as options, and the route that has been picked is 15th Avenue, and they are at approximately 10% design. So it's still somewhat early in the process, and they're proposing 2 different ways of doing it. One, so it would run from Jose Rizal Bridge along 15th Avenue and join up with Beacon Avenue and then go further south on Beacon. And so there's an option of either lanes on either side of the road, each, in different directions, or a 2-way bike lane on I believe on the east side of the road. There are issues with people have raised issues with locating these on 15th Avenue because the narrowness of the road would require that essentially all parking would be removed from the bridge to almost Beacon Avenue. It would just leave a few spots right near Beacon Avenue where it's wide enough. This is an issue for a number of the folks who live along 15th and in the nearby community, because it would require the removal of something of, I believe, like around 130, 133 parking spaces, which would affect a lot of people who live along that route. So we met the Beacon Hill Council, some of the representatives from the 15th Avenue residents, and some of the folks from the Beacon Hill Safe Streets group, which is supportive of the route, met last week. And Kalia, wanted to make sure you have time to also speak. You're a resident along 15th Avenue, and I'm a nearby resident on 14th. Kalia, jump in at any point if you want to add anything. So the meeting, we did not come to any agreements or conclusions, but we had a discussion of the issues that each of the groups sort of felt strongly about. So for many of the people along 15th Avenue, the loss of parking, represents an issue because they would potentially need to park, along. There isn't a lot of options nearby, and having to park further away brings up issues of personal safety. People work at night, have to walk, at night, and also the nearby streets are pretty hilly, and so they're kind of treacherous in bad weather. And there's also issues of speeding along the road. And Kalia, jump in if you want to add in any more issues. I think you're a little bit more
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. Just like the quick summary, it's the loss of parking is going to have an impact on people who live on the street. Just like you said, as far as safety, walking at night, and just the limited parking on the side streets all up and down this northern section of the bike lane is a real pain point for myself and other people who live along 15th. And as far as safe streets, it was good to hear about some of their concerns as well, and things that they wanted out of the bike lane, which included a flat road, a most direct path to the business district and things like that. And so the meeting was essentially that we were able to collaborate with them and discuss some of the alternatives that we had on both sides, and just to create a working relationship going forward so we can keep them involved in our process and in our communications with SDOT as well.
Great. And for the Beacon Hill Council in general, there's sort of, a larger kind of issue that we've had for a long time, in that we would like to see SDOT address some of our issues on the Hill, and not just this project, but in terms of road maintenance. So for example, 12th Avenue is a major bus route. It is pothole like the moon. It's very difficult to drive or ride a bike on it. It needs help. We also are being used as a cut through when people run into traffic on I-5 and I-90. So traffic here has increased a great deal. That brings with it air pollution. It brings with it, issues of livability. And for years, we've had a town center plan to kind of refigure the way that Beacon and 15th operate, and how traffic moves through there, to kind of help out our business district, allow for an easier way of being able to use that area to go to restaurants, to go to the grocery store, you know, all kinds of things. This plan was put together, you know, by the neighborhood with over $800,000 of city money, which was allocated to put the plan together when we were doing a neighborhood plan update. And essentially none of it has gotten built since that time. And so, you know, for Beacon Hill, there's this, the Beacon Hill Council, there's this kind of larger issue that we want to have a relationship with SDOT so that we can move forward on some of these other things. But going back to the bike lane project, we did not come to any sort of agreements or conclusions, you know, between all the groups, though I think, you know, in terms of like locating the bike lanes and any kind of choices, but I think everybody agreed that we need to increase safety on 15th. The vehicle speeds are too fast. It's a long stretch with no sort of traffic controls, stop signs, lights. So basically from College all the way to the bridge is kind of a speedway. And so everybody agreed that this is an issue. Beacon Hill Safe Streets presented a couple of ideas that may be options for addressing some of this. One of which was to make 15th a residential street, so kind of slow it down. Basically, it would you would kind of close it off in different areas and have local access only, and that would allow for you know, having a single lane, which would leave some space for parking while allowing a bike lane to go through. And the other idea was to make 14th and 15th one-way couplets where each of those would have one lane in either direction rather than two. We also, the Beacon Hill Council a year ago when this whole project started, met with SDOT. SDOT came to our meeting and we kind of did an analysis. Rita was part of kind of working that through, and Amy and a few other people. We did our own kind of analysis. And one of the things that we suggested was that if they were to use 15th, that they could use part of 15th and then have the bike lane go over to 16th Avenue, which is already a residential street. And so I did a quick kind of map drawing of that. So I'll bring that up for you so you can take a look. Okay, so here's the map of Beacon Hill, and you can see I've just kind of outlined in purple, starting up. I'm sorry, can everybody see this? I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay. So starting at the bridge, going along 15th, so approximately half the route would be along 15th, and then at about Holgate, the route would switch over to 16th Avenue, which is a residential street. And then it would continue on to join up with Beacon Avenue over by the Roberto Maestas Festival Street. So there would be a short jog on the Festival Street, and then it would continue on onto Beacon Avenue. And, you know, one of the things that this allows, well, some of the things that this allows for is it would preserve at least some of the parking along 15th. It would also allow for an easier sort of connection to Beacon Avenue, because if the route was to go down 15th, this connection at 15th and Beacon is kind of tricky. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and so this connection at 16th and Beacon might be easier. This is also the area where we're talking about having the Beacon Town Center, where perhaps this connection could be even easier because of the changes that would be made from that. But we won't, I'll lay that aside for now because we don't have that yet. So essentially, this is the idea that we presented to the Beacon Hill Safe Streets group. So we're at the point where we're considering each other's options. And just wanted to let you know that, we're still talking. I think there's a lot of communication that happened between the groups, though no conclusions. So SDOT is currently collecting feedback on the idea of, basically going on 15th all the way. They've changed things a little bit. They've added some crosswalks at various intersections because we had expressed concern about, the lack of sort of pedestrian facilities. But they haven't really done anything specific to address the speed issue. And it's still, the current plan still removes nearly all the parking. So that's their current proposal. It's on their website, the project page. And there's different ways to give them feedback. One of the ways is a pop-up event that they're having on, I believe, next Wednesday at Red Apple. They're also, there's a survey, though I will say the survey is pretty difficult to get through. And it really kind of leads you to supporting one of the two bike lane options. Like, it doesn't really give you the option of saying, hey, I have a different idea. So the way that I'm going to provide input, and the way that I'm sort of, if you want to give them ideas that sort of are outside of their kind of plan, or to give them, ideas of other options, I would suggest writing to them in email. And all of these ways are on their project page. And I think we can also put it on our Twitter, or the Beacon Hill Council Twitter, and all those various different ways of communicating. So any questions? Actually, Kalia, do you want to add anything at this point, or Amy? Anybody else?
No, just a note that the pop-up at Red Apple is going to be inside of the store in case, so don't be looking for a table on the outside.
Somebody raised their hand. Sorry, it went away.
Hi, it's me. So I have no
Oh,
idea
hi.
how to use Zoom. This is my first Zoom event. So sorry if this is not the venue for this. Just let me know. But I wanted to understand just a little bit more about this graphic here. So this looks like it would divert like between I can't see, the Beacon Hill playfield and College, basically, is where like we would save that parking. Is that correct? Since 15th has a turning lane after College.
It would run along. It would run along 16th between about Holgate to Beacon Avenue.
Gotcha. And are you suggesting that we signalize College at that intersection there?
So College is here.
Right. And you're suggesting sort of like moving it down a couple of blocks, which I think that block doesn't have like a signal. So are you suggesting that SDOT signalize that as well?
There is a signal. There's a stoplight at College.
Yeah, on 15th, but not on your proposed route of 16th, right?
Oh, no, I'm not. Yeah, no, we're not suggesting that this be necessarily signalized. If this is a, a sketch. I mean, this would need evaluation by SDOT. It's not developed at that point.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm gonna.
I went to the pop-up meeting they had tonight up at the resolution. and talked with the project engineer about the conflicts they're proposing there between the buses and the bikers. In fact, they even are proposing one option is to have the bike path go between the bus stop and the light rail station on the east side of Beacon, which I think would just be chaos, having a bike path go through that pedestrian rush to the bus stop. What I suggested was making a bus pull-out lane, one northbound, one southbound, immediately before each of the stoplights in front of the light rail station. So the one on Roberta Maestas and the other one on McClellan, so that the buses could have a preempt to get back in traffic. That's why they don't usually like those pullouts. But with a pullout, you could keep the bikes in the center of the roadway next to the through traffic, so long as you could manage the buses crossing the bike path. But they've got a mess there to figure out too. And this is interesting, Mira, to go behind the light rail station instead. You might even consider jogging down 17th at El Centro instead of getting back in front of the light rail station where they're going to have the conflict with the buses.
Yeah, this is like a high level sort of idea. It hasn't been kind of worked through any of those kinds of details, but yeah,
Right.
thank you for the suggestion. I believe you know, one of the things that Beacon Hill Safe Streets had a lot of concern about is having a route that's as direct as possible. Yeah, that might be, you know, having a bunch of jogs might be an issue for them. That's kind of one of the things about one of the other options, which was 12th, 13th to 14th was problematic. So yeah, but that could be discussed. But thanks for the suggestion. Dee, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that, you know, we're still looking to really work with Safe Streets and SDOT to see whatever option may work, and that we haven't really, you know, settled on any one of these options. We're just throwing out the pros and the cons of the different ideas that we've had. We would really like to explore this more to find a solution that works for both the cyclists and the residents to keep everybody safe. So whatever that ends up to be, we just want to really be able to work together with SDOT on that. That's
Okay.
all.
Thank you. And then Andrew.
Hi, yeah, I'm sorry, I came to this your presentation late, so you may have already talked about this. So I see your proposal. I can kind of understand a lot of why you're proposing that. And you may have already mentioned it, but if you go, if you continue southbound on 15th Avenue, there is a significant hill there, and it kind of makes sense to kind of shunt people off to 16th there, I think. One thing I'm a little concerned with, and I don't know if this is within the scope of what you're talking about, but obviously this route doesn't get people close to Beacon Playfield. And I know it is a challenge to get to Beacon Playfield. And you, a second ago, you alluded to going along the, I guess another proposal, which is going up 12th Avenue South. Yeah, obviously we've got a very challenging topography for cyclists, you know, but I guess what I'm thinking about is, and you know, most adult cyclists can kind of, I guess, deal with a lot of this, but for younger kids and things like that, is how can we kind of make sure that, you know, all of the various I guess various altitudes, I should say, or not altitudes, but levels of Beacon Hill are accessible.
Yeah, and I think, you know, earlier on in the discussions of this project, some of the issues that were raised were the issue of, you know, having to climb hills and trying to keep things as flat as possible.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, there's a preference for 15th by bicyclists.
Mhm.
14th was also suggested and 12th was suggested, and both of those require a climb. So
Oh.
much more of a climb. And so those
Yeah.
were not preferred by
No,
cyclists.
yeah. No doubt, but I kind of think it's like, and perhaps we need more then. I mean, obviously, like, yeah, I can see how 15th is preferred because it has less of a climb or it's more gradual or longer distance, but that still makes it very difficult to get to, you know, Beacon Playfield, say. You know, you basically have to go, you know, those hills to go from 15th up to Beacon are super steep. Nobody's gonna, you know, no kid could ride the bike up that, I would think. So I don't know. Anyway, just it kind of seems like we might need perhaps some parallel paths. Yeah, you can wiggle up. I guess I have pushed my kid up, you know, Walker Street, but in any event,
You definitely
like,
should. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying that you should let SDOT know some of your concerns, because I think definitely from our side, we haven't heard a lot of varying opinion from cyclists.
Mhm.
So if, you know, there's an opinion that you have about this, definitely make sure, you know, you're emailing SDOT or going to
Okay.
their pop-ups and stuff, because that'd be really valuable for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
do a time check. Why don't we have Amelia, and then I saw a comment on the chat. And I'm just gonna say a general principle that I've learned in doing community work, which is nobody gets everything. You know, all we're trying to do is find the largest and broadest solution that can address safety for everybody. The biking people, the people who are crossing the street, the people who live there, and definitely appropriate accessibility for disabled, for we have service vans that are stopping in the middle of the street. So there's a lot to be solved. Amelia, you have the last question. Please go ahead.
Just a couple of comments. I do agree that having the actual bike lanes going through on Beacon Hill on 15th, I should say right in front of the light rail, does seem problematic, especially when you have a bus 36 also trying to get through. And it's also being delayed at this point because of all that, because of the way that it's currently set up with the one lane only, just trying to get to that stop on the bus is already problematic. Also, I do have to just highly recommend comments should be submitted to SDOT if there are any comments on this project. And I also have to say that they have not heard a lot of comments or feedback on the upcoming future segments of Beacon Hill that they are going to be talking about when it comes past Spokane Street, which is going to be happening after this segment. And when I talked to the pop-up today, those who are working the pop-up today, they haven't heard very many comments. And I can't stress how important it is to submit comments for these types of projects so that we can be heard. If you look at the survey results, they only received 550 results from the survey. And of that survey, that is where they're basing off these decisions of. And if our voices want to be heard, I feel that feedback, if we can get as many comments to the city in many different ways, then our voices can be heard on this project. Thank you.
Yeah, I second what you're saying. And guys, when we ask SDOT if they can disaggregate the input, because they were using the term community outreach, and our neighbors at the north Beacon Hill were saying they haven't been talked to. So they're guessing that the community outreach was done to the biking community to begin with. So when you put in your comments, identify who you are, where you live, not necessarily the specific address, but the general place, and that you're from Beacon Hill. So folks can have an understanding that you are an impacted community. With that,
Oh, also, Maria, if I could run one more thing. The last thing on our agenda, just a update on last thing, we're having a meeting with the SDOT director on Saturday. So it's going to be Beacon Hill Council, and some of the 15th Ave neighbors are going to meet with the SDOT director and hopefully convey what we've heard here today and what we've been hearing from you guys regarding the bike route. Yeah.
Okay, and with that, we're running a little bit past time, but we've got Myra, you have an announcement regarding Chesty, I believe. And then we'll have the fuller discussion in January.
Yes, yeah, I think Sarah was not able to make it tonight. Yes, I don't see her on. So I told her that if she wasn't able to make it in time, that I would do that. So yeah, so as you've probably heard from a presentation previously about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, there's mountain biking trails that have been that opened up, I believe in October, in the south portion of the Chiste green space. Those trails went in an area that's kind of a less when the vegetation management plan was done for the area, it was considered to be an area that's kind of not quite as high quality as the northern portion is. So now Parks, we've spoken with Parks, and they will be starting a public input process on putting trails in the northern portion of Chiste, which is the higher quality habitat, better tree coverage, and then also more wetlands. And this is the area that we've kind of termed as the heartland of Chiste. So that's going to be happening in the first quarter of, or they're planning on doing the public input process in the first quarter of 2023. And so wanted to let this group know that, and kind of get folks, understanding what the issues are, because from what we've seen of the trails in the southern portion that were put in, we did measurements on how much clearing there was, and it's approximately 42,000 square feet, which is about an acre out of an area that's about 7 acres. 7 to 10 acres, depending on how you kind of measure the area. So that's quite a bit, and it's about twice as what the Parks Department's permit stated that it would be. So they estimated approximately 20,600 square feet, and it ended up being approximately twice that. So knowing that, going into building more trails is potentially an issue that I think the community needs to kind of discuss and know about, kind of going in. So we're going to be meeting with the Parks Department in December, getting more information, and we'd like to come back in January and do kind of a fuller presentation with the data that we get. And I think that it would be good for the Beacon Hill Council to kind of help guide the public process, the public input process, because the last sort of public input process was not ideal, let's say. It did not start well, it did not go well all along the way. So yeah, we'd kind of like to come back and do a fuller presentation on that, if that's okay. Oh, and also on that, I just want to let you know, we also, the Audubon folks, there was a woman from Audubon. There's a bird census that's been happening in Chiste. There's now 18 months worth of data. There's a census done every month. And so we're collecting a lot of data on, on the birds that live in and visit Chiste throughout various different seasons. And so we're getting that data. We're going to ask the Parks Department to include that data in all the data that they're collecting along the way. And also would want to present that to you as well.
Okay, so we will see you in January. And also we have to decide in January when we're going to meet. The first Tuesday of the month is on the 4th. And for some people, that's a little too close to the weekend New Year's celebrations. Should we move our meeting, excuse me, the 3rd? Should we move our meeting from the 3rd and move it to the following Tuesday, which is 10th? So just, I'll bring this up also at the board meeting, but from our community, any preference? So raise your hand when I'm going to call out the dates separately. Raise your hand if you want to have a meeting on the 3rd. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Raise your hand if you want to have the meeting set for the 10th. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, looks good. All right, any last announcements?
Yeah, me.
Cliff, yes, please.
Okay, and Jerry can touch base on this as well. But SDOT also has a project on 39th behind my house, which is a stairway that leads down to almost Martin Luther King, going through the green belt. And they've been on that project. They was going real fast on it. And then all of a sudden they just abandoned it. Now in communicating with Jerry, she said at the pop-up today or whenever that pop-up was, that she talked to Lisa Harrison about it. I talked to the house that is just directly affected to it. And they are very, very disappointed with SDOT. SDOT just basically abandoned the project. They don't know when they're coming back. It's probably maybe 50% completed, and then they just shut it down. It's been shut down now for at least almost 2 months, month and a half, 2 months. And it's something to do, what they think is that the testing that SDOT did with the drainage or the water flow underneath that green belt is causing them some problems. Maybe Jerry can step in what Lisa said, but I know the residents are really upset, and that should be something that SDOT needs to be a little bit more transparent about as well. That project.
Cliff, it's about 7:40. What I'd like to do, since you've been working with Jerry, is have Jerry bring it up during the board meeting.
That's
So-
fine. Yeah.
So everybody, what we do is, for those who are new, we have our community meeting before our board meeting so that the discussion informs what we'll do. So any last burning statements before we close the community meeting? Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you to everybody. So it takes a village, right? to get things together. And I just wanted to let you know, because of all the work that you guys have been doing with us, I wound it up with an award from Senator Rebecca Saldana and got the Community Organizer Award. But, you know, I wasn't able to go to the award, but thank goodness I put in my statement, thanks to you and to all of our partners. Okay, so thanks so much. And with that, shall we say good night? All right, thank you for coming. And have a wonderful evening.
You too, Maria. Great.